Welcome, Neil. So Neil is obviously feeling very pleased with himself, I should think, for the success of Meals on Wheels week this week. Because last week it was very good, had a high profile. And so Neil is the national chair for the NACC. And he's led, as I said, a very successful Meals on Wheels week. He's always championing Meals on Wheels to make sure that people who live in the community get a nutritious meal. And this is not an easy job. So I think that Neil's going to tell us some of the highlights and some of the difficulties that he faces. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. So I'm going to send a bit of an apology to everyone first. I haven't prepared a beautiful PowerPoint presentation for you all today, like we've seen from Phil. And so my apologies for that. You are stuck with looking at my face for the next 10, 15 minutes. Leslie has invited me along today to talk about the Meals on Wheels week that we held last week. For those of you on this call who don't know myself, I'm Neel Radia. I'm the chair for the National Association of Care Catering, but also have been leading the Meals on Wheels campaign for the last nearly 10 years now. So last week we held National Meals on Wheels Week. It's an annual event that we hold. It's all around raising the awareness of good nutrition in the community through the access of services like Meals on Wheels, but also looking at lunch clubs and day centres and how vital they are within our communities for older and vulnerable people. So last week was all around raising awareness. We've been holding this week for about 33 years now as an association, so a fair length of time. And the service, 30 years ago was fully operational across the UK. At that time, predominantly via local authorities, where they were providing the lunch clubs and the Meals on Wheels services, whether directly themselves or through partnerships, through contractors, or partnerships with the not-for-profit sector. And what we've seen over the years is the dying trend of Meals on Wheels. And last week, for Meals on Wheels Week, we as an association did a research paper in partnership with the Association of Public Sector Excellence around the state of Meals on Wheels. We've done this paper for the last 8 years now. So we did one in 2016, then again in 2018, and then again this year, just to really understand where the service is. And our report last week was really quite a devastation, really. Our report showed that in the UK, there's only 29% of local authorities still providing a Meals on Wheels service. The reason being is that the service Meals on Wheels is not seen from a local authority point of view. It's not as a statutory responsibility, which means that with the shortfall that social care have got, there's a shortfall of about £7 billion for social care, and unfortunately, not being statutory means that local authorities are having to make that decision on whether or not to keep the Meals on Wheels service still intact and working within that local authority, which from a malnutrition point of view, and everything else, it's a real devastating report and really devastating figures. So our aim as an association is to really raise awareness around not only about the nutritional value of that meal going to somebody who's living in the community on their own, or who's not able to cook for themselves, but also raising awareness around how the service is more than just a meal. So, we often get asked, but surely somebody can go to a supermarket and buy a meal, a ready meal, and put it in a microwave. Actually, Meals on Wheels is so much more than that. It's around that social interaction. A lot of older, vulnerable people in the community do not see anyone on a daily basis. They are homebound, and the service actually allows somebody regular to deliver that meal and have that personal interaction with them, which helps reduce loneliness and social isolation, as well as well-being checks. A lot of services that are still providing Meals on Wheels, who do go into the home, do a quick check around, make sure that individual is okay, make sure that if there's any support they need, that they can then signpost that support to other departments and support them. And I think coming into the winter months, even more vital, more important. With the colder and longer colder days coming in. Meals on Wheels Week is also around for us around raising awareness around social eating, around lunch clubs and day centres. Again, these are in a decline as well, and a lot of it's due to funding for these services. And also what we're hearing is a lack of volunteers coming forward as well to help support, maintain these services. And again, with lunch clubs, with the lack of funding there, they are very reliant on volunteers. And over the years, a lot of the volunteers are older people who come in and support. But unfortunately, with everything that's gone on this year, with the cost of living crisis, COVID, we're still living with COVID. We're seeing a lot of lunch clubs closing down or having to reduce their services because they've not got anyone to support them in running that, and not enough volunteers coming forward. So last week when we did Meals on Wheels Week, we basically did a theme for each day to highlight different elements of the service. The celebratory point of the whole week was Friday. We held an initiative. It's the second year running we've held this initiative called Friday Friends. And the day is all about raising awareness around social eating, lunch clubs, the value food has and how food brings people together. And we had hundreds of lunch clubs taking place across the UK. Now, what we did this year differently is, and I think Phil alluded to it just before in his presentation, is about how can we all work together in the community to provide nutritional support for older vulnerable people. And one of the areas that we looked at was shared services. We know that local authority lunch clubs are shutting down. We know that there is a lot of charities and organizations out there who are really struggling to maintain and sustain these services. But actually, there are some great organizations out there. There's businesses out there. We've got care homes, you've got hospitals, you've got local businesses, pubs, hotels. And how can we reach out to other organizations to get behind supporting older vulnerable people within the community? So we had care homes across the UK who opened up their care homes, for example, and invited people within their local communities, older people, to come and have afternoon tea with their residents, for example, in the care homes. We heard of some independent pubs and independent hotels who basically, again, did the same in their local communities, worked in partnership with local charities and brought in older people or people with disabilities, vulnerabilities, to come in and have a lunch, and provided entertainment as well. So to create that social eating atmosphere. We've heard of a hospital who did the same in their canteen, where they did a Friday Friends initiative on Friday, and had a lunch club at that hospital as well. So I think there's so much we can do together, and it's really looking outside the box and seeing what's achievable between us, to make sure that we're providing support, and bring access to people within the community, to good food, and company as well. As an organisation, we also lobbied to government last week. We sent a letter to all MPs across the country, basically lobbying to them that we believe that Meals on Wheels should be made a statutory service. We know under the current climate, with all the funding cuts, the reality is that actually that may not ever happen. However, we really believe that we need to keep banging the drums and making sure that people understand the relevance and the importance of good food, and also around funding as well. That's been really cut quite deep for social care, and food plays a very important role when it comes to within social care, and healthcare. So again, it's just an opportunity to raise that awareness and profile around that whole issue as well. We were very fortunate. We had a lot of supporters from other organisations. I know Leslie from Malnutrition Task Force was a co-signatory, Age UK, the National Care Forum, Care England. We had several signatories from different organisations supporting our letter, which was we're grateful for. And again, it's all about working together, how we can all work together to bring this to the government's attention, that we do need more support for nutritional services in our communities. As I mentioned before, we also launched the National Meals on Wheels report. For those of you who haven't seen it, if you jump on the NACC website and go to the Meals on Wheels page, there is actually a copy you can download for the report. The results are really, really bad. I mean, it's not great. I mean, in England, if we do not get urgent intervention come through, especially with funding and some of these closures, our prediction is that we will lose Meals on Wheels in England within the next 18 months, maybe even 24 months. Since the report was published, we've heard of 3 more services that have been told that they will be closing down come April time. But again, what Meals on Wheels we did last week is that we also had some local authority members come forward to say that actually by participating in a week, raising that awareness locally with their council as well, they have had their council leaders approach them to say, okay, we've seen that how important this service is. We've been out to see your services, met some of the residents. What else can we do to keep these services going? Can you find other models of what other people are doing which are successful in the community to provide Meals on Wheels? And can you present that back to us? See what else we can do to keep services going, which will be using a different model to what we're currently using, which is running at deficit in our council. So the week's been successful in that way as well. And as an association, we will keep sharing case studies and practices and holding webinars and so forth to try and share best practices. And I think, Phil does it really well in the work he does with the NHS. The more we share best practices, have awareness weeks like Malnutrition Awareness Week, Meals on Wheels Week, keep using social media correctly, tagging in the right decision makers when we're doing our social media posts is really important, and tagging in the right people for that. otherwise we just keep talking to ourselves within a circle which is already already believing in the work we're doing. So working together to see how we can get out more to government, to local government, to other policymakers as well, around the work we're doing. What next for the NACC in the work we're doing? I mean, there's no point for us as an association to wait for Meals on Wheels Week next year to keep banging the drums on this. Malnutrition is affecting the community quite drastically. We are losing services. I think with the general elections coming up, it's really important that we all work together to keep banging the drums around good nutrition, good hydration in the communities, and the vital relevance and importance for the work we're all doing in the community around food for those in our care. I think we need to all keep banging these drums. We've got probably another 7-8 months before the general elections to keep this high on the government agenda. We are looking at other ways as well that health and social care can work together more. And I know I've spoken with Phil quite a bit as well to see how we can build that connection, build that road between hospital caterers and the NHS and local authorities as well. We've heard some really good best practices last week at Meals on Wheels Week, where I was talking with Hills, for example, and how they've tapped into funding towards helping them provide people in charge from hospital back into the community with a Meals on Wheels, for the first couple of weeks of their recuperation back at home. Again, it's sharing these type of best practices with each other, so everyone knows where to go to be able to support the services they're running in their local locations. I'm not sure if I've covered everything, Leslie. I've just been going off on one. I don't know if anyone's got any questions for me while I'm online.
Thank you. I think you've covered a lot in your small amount of time. Thank you very much. And as Neel says, any questions, put them in the chat. So I think what is coming from all of the presenters is this consistent message about us all needing to work together. We must work together. If we're going to make a real difference, we've got to continue to work together, and we've got to challenge that lack of funding that you were speaking about, Neel, and the lack of volunteers. We're finding this in Age UK a little, that volunteers are quite hard to come by these days. But Diane made a really good point in the chat when she said, are we telling people what fun it is to volunteer? So maybe we need to be putting some fun-filled messages to show people, what it feels like to be a volunteer, what's expected of you, and let's work together to try and do that. And it's sad to hear that the lunch clubs are still struggling. We know what a good lifeline they were from before the pandemic, and how people now are missing them because they're just not being able to be reopened in the same way as they were. But I think that all of us here, Neel, are here supporting you with the Meals on Wheels drum. So keep on banging it. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.